In this segment, State Extension Specialist in Entomology Russel Groves talks about how to manage pests like the Colorado potato beetle, potato leafhopper, onion thrips, and cucumber beetles.
Thanks again for the invitation, also from Aaron. And as Aaron had indicated, what I'll focus on a little bit later in the talk is some of the work that we've been doing with cucumber beetle. And cucumber beetle is a vector of a bacterial pathogen called bacterial wilt, which maybe some of you are familiar with, and if you're not familiar with it, then great. Consider yourself awfully lucky. But before we get to that, I just wanted to touch on, because Judy's got such a real nice setup here, a couple of other of the key issues that many of the organic producers face, and since they're right close hereby. Just direct our attention down here closer to the shed, and we're looking at the potato trials down there. And I've only found just a few, but one of the challenges that we often face in potato production with respect to insect management is an insect called the Colorado potato beetle. But if you're an organic producer and you're well aware of the material called Entrust, or if you still might have in your stocks a little bit of BT, truly materials that will provide you with excellent control for Colorado potato beetle. And if Judy's not applying anything, I want to see how she's holding her mouth, because she must be holding her mouth right, because it's amazing. Where you plant potatoes, potato beetle will often find you, and there's truly not many at all down there. But for the organic producer, potato beetles often are not discouraged. Nick, you can probably attest to this. The insect pest that ends up being the biggest challenge, the insect pest for which we have few alternatives, is the potato leafhopper. And the potato leafhopper is one that will cause these leaves to just begin to curl. And I know you all can't see that right here, but if you go down and look in those potatoes, not all varieties respond similarly, but a lot of our round whites, like our Superior, our Snowdens, they don't tolerate leafhopper damage much at all. And they'll start to curl and curl at this time of year. They can curl earlier than that, but this time of year in particular, because we're now starting to see finally reach some economic thresholds with potato leafhopper. Usually it can have something to do with our proximity to a forage crop, forage legume like alfalfa. They'll develop in significant numbers in alfalfa, and with successive cuttings in particular, they'll invade our potato crop, and they'll do as much economic damage in potatoes as Colorado potato beetle will. It's just that it's not as obvious. Certainly when Colorado potato beetle chew your potatoes off, that's pretty obvious. But when you've got round whites or something that are starting to curl like that, you might actually erroneously think, well, they're going down, they're just naturally going down, when in fact they may have at least another 10 to 15 days of bulking, and potato beetles are definitely taking them out. So again, the challenge is we don't have a whole lot of materials. Probably the two materials that we have as far as organics that we can use include like the natural pyrethrums, Pyganic, Evergreen, Pyranone, several registrations. Thing to be mindful of there is that material does not last long on the leaf surface. If you use one of these natural pyrethrums, if you sprayed right now, at this time of day, for example, that material would be gone and ineffective in probably a matter of 25 to 35 minutes. The sun will destroy that compound very quickly. So that's why all you organic producers get the reputation of spraying at night. Everybody drives by and points their finger and says, oh, look, those guys are organic, they're spraying at night. Well, of course you're spraying at night, because the materials you have available to you won't stand the sunlight. And so that is truly a real benefit that you should use is to spray in evening. You'll get the full night worth of control to control that target. So I just wanted to highlight potato leafhopper, a very seemingly unrepresented or not well represented key insect pest in organic potato production. The other one, and it's a challenge for many organic producers, is in this bed right behind us, and that is in onions, and in particular onion thrips. This year we've been fortunate enough to have, well, we got to be careful. From an onion thrips control standpoint, we've been fortunate to have all this rain, because these big heavy rains will give us a lot of natural control to control onion thrips. But when we enter into about this time of year, when our crop is really starting to bulb and we're wanting to get 4s and 5s, if we don't have adequate control of onion thrips, they can really set us back, especially in late July and early August when we're trying to size up a crop. And onion thrips are actually have another common name called plant lice. When you go down, and not to be mean to Judy or anyone here, there's plenty of thrips in there, but they really look good. There's not a lot of overt damage in those. But just pull those middle leaves apart and look in there, and you'll see as many as 5 to 10 little yellow dots scurrying around inside those leaf axils. And that's where you'll find those insects. Later in the season, when populations continue to increase and so forth, they'll get so damaging that they'll silver the canopy. They'll turn the leaves like an off-white, or a condition we call a silvering. And that kind of silvering just reduces the photosynthetic area of the plant. And by reducing that photosynthetic area, you won't bulb a crop. And you won't bulb it to the extent to which you can. So anyway, probably the two materials we have available for onion thrips as far as an organic producer would include the azadirachtin material, or the neem oil. You can use that in the early season. Thrips just generally don't like it. It's not going to be a real good direct insecticide, but it will suppress populations. But by the time we get to this time of year, or late July, mid-July, and we've exceeded what we know to be the established thresholds on onions, and that's around 3 thrips per leaf, really we have one effective compound, and that's Entrust. So has anybody ever used Entrust? Well, good. Seems like...
What does it cost per acre?
The Entrust per acre is probably going to be around $22. It's Dow is awfully proud of it. Yep.
The last I heard was $90.
No, I don't think it's that. So the rate that we're looking at is around 2 ounces. You could go down around maybe 1.5 ounces if the populations aren't just really increasing. But it's right around. Well, it depends upon the vendor. I would say you shouldn't pay more than $22 to $26 per acre. There's a non-OMRI approved formulation, Spentor. It just the carriers in it are not considered organic, and that's in the teens. But of course you won't pass OMRI certification. Yes.
Would you put the Entrust on at nighttime?
I absolutely would. I would consider putting it on, as an evening spray, because it too is vulnerable to degradation by the sun. Absolutely. So a lot of the differences between our organic formulations and our synthetic formulations is not always the active ingredient. It's the synthetic carriers in it that are stabilizers that keep the sun from degrading it or stabilize it on the leaf surface. So again, it's not always the active ingredient. It's the adjuvants, if you will. So anyway, that's just another key insect pest.